Chapter 3. Adversaries of Reason: Why Atheism is Irrational. Imagine you are a taxi driver and one day you receive a call to pick up 2 passengers from the train station. You are quite close, so you arrive before the scheduled time. The passengers' train arrives and after a few moments they get into your car. You exchange greetings and then you ask them where they want to go. They request that you take them to their office, which is about 9 miles away. You start the car and begin to drive. After some time you drop them off at their office. Now rewind the story. Imagine that just after the passengers get into your car, you put on a blindfold. In this scenario, would you be able to drive your passengers to their destination? The answer is obvious. You could never drive them to their destination because you are blind, you cannot see because of the blindfold. However, what if you insisted that you could drive your vehicle with your blindfold on? Wouldn't your passengers describe you as irrational, if not insane? The taxi driver who can see represents Islamic theism, and the taxi driver who has a blindfold on represents atheism. Introducing the argument. Before I explain why the taxi drivers in this story are analogies of atheism and Islamic theism, let me provide you with some essential background information. Both Muslims and atheists assume that they have the ability to reason. This means that we are able to form mental insights. We see our way to a conclusion in our minds. Our minds take premises or statements and drive them to a mental destination, in other words, a logical conclusion. This is a key feature of a rational mind. So why is atheism like a taxi driver with a blindfold on? Most forms of atheism imply philosophical naturalism, which demands that reason and everything else must only be explained via blind, non-rational, physical processes. However, just as you cannot drive passengers to their office with a blindfold on, physical processes that are blind can never drive any premises in our minds to a mental destination. Therefore, atheism is in effect equivalent to rejecting reason itself, because it invalidates its own assumption. Our ability to reason simply does not fit within the naturalistic worldview, because rationality cannot come from blind, non-rational physical processes. To maintain that it can is the same as believing that something can come from nothing. From this perspective, atheism is irrational. Atheism invalidates the thing that it claims to use to deny God, reason. So why is Islamic theism like a taxi driver who can see? Our ability to form mental insights fits within Islamic theism because this ability makes sense, i.e., is explained adequately, if it was given to us by the Creator who is all-seeing, the knowing and the wise. A thing cannot give rise to something if it does not contain it, or if it does not have the ability or the potential to give rise to it. In other words, rationality can only come from rationality. This is why our ability to form mental insights can come from the Creator. The argument in this chapter asserts that our ability to reason is assumed by both atheists and theists. This assumption, however, fits nicely within Islamic theism and does not fit or make sense under atheism. Therefore, it would only be rational to accept Islamic theism over atheism. This chapter will examine these assertions in detail. However, before I elaborate, the dialogue below is a summary of what will be discussed in this chapter. Atheist: there is no evidence for the existence of God. Belief in God is irrational. Muslim: that's an interesting assertion. Before we continue, can I ask you, do you believe that you have rational faculties? In other words, do you believe you can reason? Atheist: obviously. Any rational person would deny God. There's simply no evidence. Muslim: okay, great. So can I ask, how do you explain your rational faculties under atheism? Atheist: what do you mean? Muslim: well, do you believe all phenomena can be explained via physical stuff? And do you believe that there is no supernatural? Atheist: sure. Muslim: physical stuff is just blind and non-rational. So how can rationality come from non-rationality? How can anything arise from something that does not contain it or have the potential to give rise to it? How can we form mental insights based on blind physical processes? In this light, how can you explain your ability to reason? Atheist: well, we have a brain that has evolved. Muslim: Okay, and according to atheism an evolved brain is based on physical stuff too? No. Atheist: yes, but our brains have evolved to be rational, because the more you know about the world the more likely you are to survive. Muslim: that's not true. Holding non-rational beliefs about the world can lead to survival too. Atheist: so what? We both assume reason to be true, so it's not an issue. Muslim: well, for me it isn't. But under atheism your ability to reason does not make sense. Atheism has invalidated the very assumption that it claims to use to deny God. So it is absurd to be an atheist since atheism nullifies reason itself. Atheist: no, you have to prove God to me first. Muslim: that's a cop-out, because your use of the word proof assumes your ability to reason. However, you are not justified in making such an assumption because rationality is nullified under atheism. Rationality cannot come from non-rationality. From this perspective, atheism is irrational. However, rationality can come from rationality. This is why Islamic theism explains best why we can use our reason, as it came from the Creator who is all-seeing, the knowing and the wise. What is reason?